So, yeah, thank you for the kind introduction and for giving me the opportunity to present my research. So, as announced, the title of my talk is Unlocking the Mysteries of Auditory Phantom Perception through Stochastic Resonance. So, what we know is, so I will start with a very short introduction of the given facts. So approximately 12% of the population suffer from tinnitus, which means that they perceive a sound without any external sound source. We also know that tinnitus is associated with some kind of hearing loss, that not everyone with hearing loss perceives tinnitus, and that tinnitus is associated with neuronal hyperactivity. And finally, we know that tinnitus severity is often associated with, with hyperacusis. So very recently, it has been found that tinnitus patients have lower hearing thresholds, which means better hearing thresholds compared to age-matched patients. That tinnitus patients have less cognitive decline compared to age-matched control groups. And finally, that somatosensory input, for instance, due to jaw movements, can modulate tinnitus. So we need some kind of mechanistic tinnitus model which is able to explain all these different effects and all this different knowledge. So we came up during the last, let's say, 10 years and developed a comprehensive mechanistic tinnitus model that basically consists of three parts. So the stochastic resonance or central noise model, which serves as kind of a bottom-up model and explains what's going on in the brainstem. Then the central gain or homeostatic plasticity model, which kind of helps to explain the neuroplastic changes along the auditory pathway. And then finally, the predictive coding model, which complements the stochastic resonance model as a top-down model and explains how this central noise is perceived as tinnitus. So let's have a closer look at the three different parts. So first of all, the stochastic resonance model or the central noise model. So our idea is that the brain somehow compensates for hearing loss, which could also be some kind of hidden hearing loss, which means that it is not obvious in normal pure tone hearing tests, but the understanding of speech, for instance, in cocktail party situations can already be distorted. So, and the brain compensates for hearing loss by adding internally generated neural activity, so neural noise. And by that, a mechanism can be exploited, which is ubiquitous in nature and which is called stochastic resonance. So the mechanism briefly works as follows. If you have some signal which is too weak for a given sensor, which is sub-threshold, then this results in a zero output. So nothing is perceived, basically. If you then add noise to the sensor, then signal plus noise eventually passes the threshold, resulting in an output that's envelope resembles the original signal again. So by that, too weak sub-threshold signal can be made perceivable again. However, if you turn up and increase the noise further, then of course the signal again vanishes in the noise. So there is some optimum noise level which maximizes information transmission, and we propose that the brainstem, or basically the dorsal cochlear nucleus, actively exploits these mechanisms and continuously adjusts the level of noise to be added to the auditory system in order to maintain maximum information transmission. And the source of noise comes from the somatory system, according to our model. So there are projections from the somatosensory system to the dorsal cochlear nucleus, and we believe that these somatosensory projections serve as the source of uncorrelated noise, so noise in the physical sense of meaning as a random signal. It actually turns out that on average, the hearing thresholds of tinnitus patients is approximately 5 dB better than compared to age-matched patients without tinnitus. And interestingly, exactly in the frequency range, which is important for speech perception. So we further wanted to understand what goes on there, and we set up a hybrid a model which consisted of the first part of the model was a biophysically realistic model of the cochlea and the dorsal cochlear nucleus, and the subsequent part of the model consisted of a deep neural network that was trained on speech recognition. So we trained this network on the most common 500 German words. And after the network was trained, we had certain reference accuracy for this speech recognition, of course. And then we introduced a simulated hearing loss. So we simulated a hearing loss in the frequency range between 400 hertz and 4 kilohertz. And consequently, of course, as expected, the speech recognition accuracy decreased. However, if we then added neural noise, so in this case, Gaussian distributed white noise, at exactly the point in the model where we also would localize it in the auditory pathway, then speech recognition accuracy remarkably increased again. So this means that a speech recognition under certain circumstances even could be doubled compared to speech recognition accuracy with simulated hearing loss, but without any addition of noise. However, this effect does not cannot be observed in frequencies in a frequency range above 4 kilohertz, and this is also very important. So because this is in line with our findings from our patient database, and this is also kind of explainable if we think about phase locking, which only works up to approximately 4 kilohertz. And it's also interesting from another point of view, because the frequency range where this stochastic resonance mechanism to restore speech recognition works best is exactly in the frequency range, which is most important for speech perception in humans. So above 4 kilohertz, these frequency ranges are not so important for speech recognition. So as an interim conclusion of the stochastic resonance model, we propose that the auditory system adapts for hearing loss by adding internal neural noise in order to exploit the stochastic resonance effect. And we further propose that this intrinsic neural noise may be the neural correlate of the hyperactivity which is observed along the auditory pathway and is subsequently and finally perceived as tinnitus. And we could demonstrate in a computational model that the stochastic resonance effect is able to double speech recognition accuracy after hearing loss. And it works best for frequencies below 4 kilohertz. So we can already explain the green boxes. And now two facts are left in our explanation. So why does not everyone with hearing loss perceive tinnitus? And why is tinnitus severity often associated with hyperacusis? So if we then add the central gain or homeostatic plasticity model to our bottom-up brainstem stochastic resonance model, then we can relatively simply explain this hyperacusis effect. So what happens in according to homeostatic plasticity or central gain is that the input is amplified by some gain due to neuroplastic changes. And if we now go back to the stochastic resonance model and remember that the input to the auditory system is not only the auditory input, but also the noise input, then it becomes obvious that this central gain does not only amplify the auditory input, but also the noisy input. And this noise, this amplified noise, we believe is this multiplicative amplification is the neural correlate of homeostatic plasticity, of hyperacusis. So by that, the central gain leads to amplification of both neural noise and modulates also the tinnitus. So we can now explain almost all these findings. And what is finally left is, why does not everyone with hearing loss also perceive tinnitus? And we believe that this is due to predictive coding. So predictive coding is a very popular framework in contemporary neuroscience, which comes from the insight that the brain is basically a prediction machine, and that on all levels of perception and cognition, the brain permanently tries to predict what comes next. And even if we look at contemporary large language models like ChatGPT, we see that this is a very successful strategy. So what ChatGPT basically does is to predict which word comes next from the input. So this is a very successful idea and strategy for the brain and for information processing. And according to the predictive coding model, the brain misinterprets the increased neuronal activity due to the addition of central noise and the amplification of this noise due to central gain. And the brain finally misinterprets this signal as tinnitus. And however, if we have kind of if those neuroplastic changes, or if our belief, our prior, according to the Bayesian frame network, is not changed, which is due to mechanisms we cannot fully explain right now, then it comes not to this misinterpretation, and then even though the neural activity is increased and the neural noise comes upward the auditory pathway to the cerebral cortex, it is not misinterpreted as some actual sound. So, and by that, we are so excusing for being very briefly, and by that we were able to kind of put all the different aspects together. And so, of course, this is work in progress, and this model is by no means final, and it may be to be adapted at certain points or when new findings come up. But we believe this is at least as a thought model that puts a lot of mosaic pieces together. It already is able to explain at least most of the findings, of most of the most important findings in tinnitus research. And with that, I'm at the end of my talk, and I want to thank you for your kind attention. And yeah, as Susanne and Anush told us, I have to leave early to pick up my daughter. So I'm sorry for being a little bit in hurry. Thank you for your attention.